Subject would be, when someone wants something, their thoughts focused on the lack of it or what they don't have actually hurting them and not helping them. I thought that would be something that would be good, and then could be practical steps or something.
I don't believe I heard you correctly.
Well, that was because you were staring at yourself in the camera.
I was looking at the cameras to make sure that
the lighting was good.
Watching me swat a mosquito
in the right place,
yeah, right.
And
so
working
I was
good
saying the whole concept of focusing on what you want instead of what you don't have, and that whole lack, coming from a place of lack or this or that. I think that's a really good nugget and for someone to learn, but also a really good conversation to have. That's my suggestion, but I'm open obviously to others.
Well, I think that's great, and it starts with listening to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're just going based off of what we think, then we find ourselves in a place that's lack. We have to put a frequency to it. And that frequency allows us to hear what we're saying. Could be to someone else, but ultimately it's to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then we listen to it and we say, wait a minute, where did that come from? Why am I having this feeling of lack?
Mm-hmm.
Where are these thoughts coming from that says, I don't have this, and I need this, or I want this?
Mm-hmm.
Because before you can move into this place of focusing on abundance, infinite possibilities, creation, all of this stuff, you have to oftentimes go back before you can go forward. Because if the thought, feeling, or emotion stems from, I don't have this and I need this, then that's your first indicator that you're focused on lack.
Yeah, there's something missing. It's like the underlying thing, like there's something missing right now that I need to have.
Right.
Which means you're in lack.
Right. So it's
and some people will hear that and be like, so what, I'm not supposed to want anything? Like I'm just supposed to be, like what about goals and what about moving forward?
Yeah.
Because I've had conversations with other individuals like, what does that mean? I just sit here and this is it? And I'm like, no, that's not what it means. Like there's a thing called, you can have intentions of what you'd like to see take place, and you can look at life and have goals, but there's a difference in saying something's missing right now and I want this because something's missing around. And that's where the authentic conversation with yourself has to take place, in looking at some of those things and saying, is this something I want because I feel like it's missing, and if I have it, I'm going to feel happy, content, fulfilled, whatever it is.
Right.
And that is a lie. That's the old story. It says I need to get somewhere else or have something else to get this emotion that's already in the moment, or this feeling that's already in the moment.
So I was talking to the guys this morning, and they were laughing because Monday night, at the end of Monday night's meeting, I'm like, man, how are we going to catch Eric up on this? I was just completely amazed with those 2 hours, in awe of those 2 hours, and just really aware of the abundance of that time. And we were joking and laughing because if you're not there, it's really hard to catch someone up to it and explain it. And then Tuesday night rolls around and we have our next meeting, and it was like tenfold of what Monday was, and it was just such abundance. And on Monday I couldn't even figure out or think of how to top that moment in time. And so after the meeting on Tuesday, once everyone left, I sat at the end of the table, and I was just kind of being in the moment and remembering the feeling. Now, I felt in that moment completely complete, just abundant, and it was just an incredible moment in time. Does that mean that I don't have needs? Do I not need money, paycheck? Do I not need bills? Do I not need a new car? Do I not need to lose weight? Do I not need to plan for the future? Do I not need... Of course I need all those things in that moment.
Right.
But it wasn't... And I will continue to position myself to get all those things, because that's what life is. That's exercise. And so, but in these moments, I'm not coming at these things going, here's a problem, I need to solve it.
Right.
I don't wake up in the morning and go, here's my list of problems. Like, infinite list. And then I start trying to figure out how to solve these problems all day long.
Right.
Focusing on solving the problem. Focusing on the good of the problem. And so it's different. It just is different. And it's hard to communicate the difference because it's not something that you can be aware of until you're in it. And so I think that there's a lot of people that talk about doing things. They talk about being mindful. They talk about being self-aware. They talk about goals. They talk about this. They talk about that. But no one's doing anything in the moment. They talk about it and they say they're going to do it. They say they're going to go back and do it. And what that means is that they're not doing it in the moment. You know?
It's like the go back term, because I used that the other night and you called me out on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, made so much sense. Like you said, somebody says, we're going to go back. You need to go back and do it. Well, what do you get? Like a DeLorean out in the parking lot that's going to take you back in time to do that?
Is that the context? Because I didn't know. What's the context of what he said to you?
Well, I was actually talking to Mark, and I just made the comment, go back, and I don't even remember what the setting was in it. But when he pointed it out, he just very quickly said, "Well," he goes, "one thing is you can't go back. You just have to do it. You're the only time you have is now." And that set off a whole chain of events for me and the whole rest of the meeting. My mind went like fired off, and I hit the quantum wave and like walked out of there on level 900.
That's awesome. I did see that part of the video.
Yeah, some stuff hit, but it's just part of our vernacular too. Like that we just say stuff,
right?
And we don't pay attention to what we're saying.
Like the words. And
they do mean stuff. They mean stuff to us because we've learned those words with a certain meaning. And when we repeat those words, even in the pre-programming, that meaning sets into place, and all that stuff that's pre-programmed with it goes into place. So by saying, I'll go back and do it, it's like saying I'm going to go back to first grade and do first grade over again. I'm not going back to first grade. I can't ever be whatever age you are, 6, 7 years old. Yeah. I can't go back and do that.
Right.
I can do something now, but I can't go back and do that. And so having even that in my wording, is ridiculous. Because it sets myself up for something I can't do. Yeah. I'm literally saying to do something that it's impossible for me to do.
Right.
And yet sets me up for a position of lack. Right? Because now I've set myself up to do something that I can't do. That's just another thing I can't accomplish.
Right.
Yeah. Tuesday night's question of the night was, did you hear what you just said? So while you were saying that, I was thinking of some things that people say.
Yeah.
That aren't aware of it. And one thing that I know a lot of people say is, I didn't mean that. And so where we're talking about this place of abundance is a place where that phrase doesn't exist. Because if it's coming out of your mouth, it came from somewhere, which means you meant it. Whether you meant to say it or not, your body, your mind is telling you whether you're listening to yourself or not.
Now, are you meaning if you have a different choice of words, or if something slips out that you really didn't mean to say?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, I think the importance is that getting into a position where that you don't look at things you didn't quote mean to say as something wrong. Like, so there's such a connotation on language that we're like trying to say the right thing all the time. And if I say something wrong, I just need to reposition it a different way so that it comes across right. And authentic communication is saying what's coming out and being okay with it. And then being okay with the fact that you need to evaluate what you just said, or have somebody even call you out on it and say, did you hear what you just said?
Yeah.
And then realizing and going, well, that's weird. Where'd that come from?
Right. Not, I didn't mean that.
I didn't mean that.
And isn't that what I said earlier?
Probably. But that is like the whole, now I'm going to go back in time and then justify who I am, where I came from type of thing, based on something that you don't really know. You're just justifying it based on that, instead of just going, oh yeah, that's weird. Wonder why I just said that. I actually say that quite often, don't I? And then if you're in an authentic community, they'll say, yeah, you do, or whatever, and then you're able to unfold it.
Right.
Versus locking it up
Yeah.
and going, I didn't mean that.
I didn't mean that as like trying to reel it back in. And when you reel it back in, you're just going to reuse it again. Because you're going to cast it back out again. And if I leave it out there, I can expose it for what it is. Whatever and step out of it. And not have to keep participating in that. I can do the, hey, I don't, that's crazy. I don't know why I said that. But I said it. You know, and then and then start exploring it. And that's the fun part, looking at where did that come from? And going back to the meeting we had the other night, that's what I did when he said that. And we joked, like years past, it would have totally took me a different path. But that night, I was actually able to step out of it and leave it out there and look at it and go, where did that come from? And it was, you've been trying to live in the past a lot lately. That was the next statement that came to me for myself. And I went, oh, and then I was like, no, I don't really live in the past. This is all going on in my head as I'm listening and talking at the same time. And I'm like, yeah, you do. Look at all the stuff you've been doing lately where you're living in the past. Because you've had some stuff that's disrupted your present, in your opinion. And I'm like, yep. And then it went boom, 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 boom. And it dominoed back to this huge thing that was really eye-opening for me. Yeah. And all that came out of was like me not reeling that back in and go, well, that's not what I meant, Jason. That's not what I meant. Never mind. That was an accident. I didn't mean to say that. And then that would have pulled everything back in, and I would have gone in a whole different direction. So
it's just honoring that it was what you meant to say, just holding on to that, even as uncomfortable as it may feel, and then kind of dissecting it and figuring out where it came from.
It always comes from somewhere.
Right.
That's really good. What you just said was really a powerful statement. Honoring what just came out. Honoring yourself. Trusting yourself. So, we get on like quantum wave Y50 over here. It begins and ends with you. You're in this relationship with yourself. You're getting to know yourself and what a relationship is about, and what communication in the relationship is about building trust. And as you begin to trust yourself, honor yourself, see what was said, see what was done, accept it for what it is, you begin to build this relationship where you're not second guessing everything. You're not trying to figure out everything as you go along. It may be that way at the beginning, but it's just really such a simple process of respecting yourself, honoring yourself, and saying, you know what? Yeah, that just came out of my mouth. So therefore, it's mine. Yeah. And now I have the opportunity to see why.
Right.
It's mine. Because oftentimes, like when we're really doing good and things are really good, we say a lot of interesting, fun things during those times too that we don't really pay attention to. And that's one of the reasons why we don't break the old story in those moments, is because the old story is stronger than the new story. And like you said, you're reeling it back in so that you can use it again. But if the part about living life on the quantum wave and just enjoying everything in its abundance and being aware of all of it, and that awareness creates this incredible gratitude, then when we're authentically communicating to ourselves in those moments, we are aware of what we're saying. Mm-hmm. And we're taking just as much time in those moments as we are in the moments where we see the old story. And what that does is it begins to build this new skill, because we are aware of what we're saying. It's making us feel good. We're remembering this feeling. And what that does is that gives us the power then to let the old go away. Mm-hmm. And repetition's the mother of all skills. So every day we have this ability, because we are relational beings and we're always communicating, that we have this opportunity to do the work from the moment we wake up, open our eyes till we go to sleep at night. We have the opportunity to change simply by being in this relationship with ourselves and listening to ourselves and communicating to ourselves and unfolding into the future, versus living this life in our mind where we don't have the opportunity to practice all these exercises and create these skills that are ultimately going to change us, because nothing else is going to change us. There's no book, there's no program, there's no anything that's you're changed from this moment forward.
No magic.
We all have the same opportunity every single day. We all have the same 24 hours. We all are relational beings. We're all created in this unique way. And when we're aware of who we are and where we are, and we are operating in this relationship, a committed relationship, where we trust and we respect and we want to know more about ourselves, then all these other things that people seem to reach for, those things come naturally.
Yeah.
It's by really getting to the basics of participating in the relationship that matters most to you, which is you.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the quote of the day. The most important relationship is the one with yourself.
Yeah.
It's been the quote of the
most important relationship you have
is with yourself.
Is the one with yourself.
Well, because and this is what keeps growing out of all this as the conversation continues. Is Jason brought up a really valid point about you begin to trust yourself when you start allowing and honoring what you're saying, and not trying to make it, right, wrong, whatever. It's just look at it for what it is.
Yeah.
Is that when I can begin to trust myself, now I can begin to trust other people, right? And there's so many people that walk around with trust issues, and it's the excuse is like, well, so and so burned me, or such and such, and it's an external blame per se off an event that was a real event. Right. The event's real. It's not about making things something else than what they were, but it's about understanding that your inability to trust has nothing to do with what someone has done to you, but it has to do with your inability to trust yourself.
Right.
And so if you can learn to communicate with yourself authentically, then you can learn to trust yourself. And if you can learn to trust yourself, you can learn to trust other people, which opens the door for communication with other people and your ability to hear what's actually being said. So it's a domino effect. But it starts, like you said, with communicating with yourself and trusting yourself and honoring yourself and those things. Because if I don't do that with me, how the hell am I going to do it with somebody else?
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it's my wife or whether it's a business partner or whether it's a family member, it doesn't matter.
Right. Because you're not aware. You're not willing to be aware.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not committed. You're not invested, and it's not going to work. The funny thing is it's just the way in which we've been programmed.
Mm-hmm.
And doing a bunch of external things to try and please an external source, whether that source is God or your wife or whatever it may be, your boss or your coach or whatever, that mindset is reinforcing the old story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been trained this way since an early age to please our parents, please the teacher, please God, stay out of trouble, please our friends, really please a girl or a guy or whatever if you're trying to get into a relationship. And none of it has anything to do with us.
Yeah.
With yourself.
I think the quote that I got from Jim Carrey that I put out yesterday was, your desire to be accepted will actually make you invisible in this world.
No doubt about it.
And so I was like, when I heard them say that, I was like, wow. And it's so true. It's what you're just saying. Like, what happens is you're trying to do this to get somebody to notice you. And in the doing of what you're doing, you're making yourself visible, the real you.
Right.
And then you wonder why your relationship is not going well, or that people aren't responding to you well at the office, or that your friends are thinking you're crazy, or whatever it may be. But it goes back to, you're not communicating authentically with yourself.
Right.
It's, and the powerful part of that is that most people, when you get into this position of frustration with whatever's going on, you don't have any control over, I can't make my wife work on herself to better our marriage. I can't make my brother do what he needs to do to better our relationship, or whoever it may be. But what I can do, and I have complete control over, is working on my relationship with myself. That I can do. I don't need anybody else to buy into that but me. Mm-hmm. And then when I do that, everything else changes anyway.
Right. And so now our focus is on ourselves, which awareness, the universal principle of self-awareness is that it as a whole, as an exercise, brings upon gratitude. Mm-hmm. Okay? So now I'm aware of myself, and I'm grateful for who I am. I'm grateful for everything that's around me, even if it's not up to what I want.
Right.
But I'm aware of who I am and where I am and what I have, and I'm just it is the natural process. So now I'm in this new place of gratitude. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm in this place, I'm only going to attract people that are in the same type of place. I'm not going to attract people that are in a negative place. Mm-hmm. And so then I'm not going to have conversations where people are irritating me, because I'm not attracting those people into my life. Mm-hmm. It's when we go back and we say, oh, well, you're supposed to have a good relationship with your mom. You're supposed to have a good relationship with this person. You're supposed to have a good relationship with that person. So then you go back in time and you drag the old story into your current moment, and you try and make it something that it's not.
Right.
And it's all because, Tony Robbins says, is because it doesn't match your blueprint.
Yep.
And that blueprint is the old story that is etched in your brain on how you think things should be.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that do we want to communicate and have abundance in all of our relationships? We are not in control of that. What we're in control of is having an abundant relationship with ourselves.
Right. Knowing
ourselves, being in a position of gratitude all the time. And the more we spend time in that place, the more of that type of life is attracted to us. So now we're not sitting in a place of lack trying to focus on positive things so that we can attract those things to us. Mm-hmm. That it doesn't work that way. That's the universal principle, is that you can't be in a place of lack in a problem-solving mode and attract anything else other than problems in your life.
Right.
And people say, well, it just can't be that easy, Jason. And I'm here to tell you that it's that easy. Like, this stuff is not rocket science. The problem is the problem that we will find with it is it's too easy. And our brain gets in the way and says it just can't be that easy.
Which is
easy, Jason. Which is, it makes it hard, because it's like, then you can't make like a system or, way to do it where other people can experience the same thing, because really, it's not rocket science. Like, you didn't find some new thing. You just started really getting basic with who you are in communicating, really getting basic with communicating, and it creates it. And anyone can have this thing, which is abundance, which is life, which is all these incredible things. And all those things that you think you need, that you want in your goals and your dreams and your aspirations, all of that stuff, it's not that that goes away, it's that it actually starts coming towards you now, because now you are in a position to receive it, to bring it into your life. Because when you're in the fight, flight, or freeze state, the survival state, the problem solving state, you cannot do that. You're pushing it all away. And so all you're seeing is more problems. All you're hearing is more problems. All you smell is more problems. You know, if we're in using our senses to identify where we are, it's like everything is a fucking problem.
Yeah.
And
well, there's a one of the things that came up in the meeting the other night that really hit me hard was when you were discussing part of it with one of the guys, and we were looking at what was going through his head. Like the old story he was telling himself that he wasn't even aware of at that moment, and where we got to, which was on a level of truth of where, you know, authentically, like where he's at, and you could literally see this is the old story is really complex. Like there's normally a lot, like this is one of the telltales for me when you're evaluating this with myself or with other people. This over here is super complex.
Right.
Because complexity makes us feel like things are important, right? And that there's just, if I can figure this out, then I'm therefore important. Like there's this whole thing right there, like I've got to make the problem bigger than it is, or the issue bigger than it is, because it makes me feel more important about myself or in the world or whatever it is. And the simplicity of what the truth is typically where things, or not typically, it's where things rest. And the moment is, it's real simple. And it scares people, and they say the things like, it can't be that simple, it's just not that simple. Well, why? Well, if it's that simple, the conversation normally goes back to, if it's that simple, what does it say about me?
Yeah.
Right? And so,
right.
Well, what does that say about you? Did you hear what you just said to yourself, right?
Yeah.
What is that fear of letting something be as simple as it is, allowing and quitting resisting this simplicity, say about what you think about yourself? And then have that conversation.
And that's the conversation no one wants to have.
Right.
No one wants to have an authentic communication about what they think about themselves.
Yeah.
They'll tell you how much they love their neighbor,
Yeah.
you know, and they love God, and they love this, and they love that. But when it comes down to that communication about self, with self, forget it. They will run. They will go everywhere else but be in that moment. And that's where you need to be.
That's what, when they do finally have it, it's mainly negative. They don't point out.
It's always negative.
Yeah.
Or you were going to say something.
Is.
You had something a second ago because you moved like you were going to.
I was. I don't know. I lost it.
Oh, you lost it. Okay.
Yeah.
So think about it. This. I was just thinking about this while you were talking as well. How simplistic some of this stuff is. Really, all of it is life. Like life was created for us to just float down the river, just to be in the groove and enjoy it and look around and be in this place of abundance and experience it and love it for all that it is. That is life. And so one of the exercises that we do that a lot of people really struggle with is meditation. And so we say, okay, well, all we want you to do is get into this place where you close your eyes and you practice listening to your breath. For 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, a day. And people are like, but they can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. What do you mean just listen to my breath? Shouldn't I be thinking about something else? Shouldn't I be doing this? Shouldn't I be doing that?
Now I'm thinking about not thinking.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, it is so difficult to do something so simple. But when you get there, because you positioned yourself to practice over and over and over and over again something that did not seem, you know, natural, and we position ourselves in that place, then it's the most incredible experience that we've ever had in our life. And we begin to see that what was, you know, not easy to do becomes easy, and it gives us this power to be something greater than we ever thought that we could be, something greater than we ever thought we could experience, all because we listen to our breath consistently for a week, for a month, for a year, for 2 years, for the rest of your life.
That's the kicker, is the consistency. Is that one of the things I was listening to Eckhart the other day, and he brought up the fact that the greatest addiction in humanity is we're addicted to our own thinking, to thinking, and then I started thinking about Dispenza talking about how much of our thought patterns are old thought patterns or old story. And I was like, so I had somebody ask me today, like, so what are you addicted to now? And at the time I was like, I can't think of anything. But I was like, there's still that addiction to the old story.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of the thought process that I'm addicted to thinking, and the thinking that I'm addicted to is the old story. And just admitting that and putting that out there is like saying it is, and leaving it out there, not trying to justify it, but like coming to that awareness that it's humanity. That's the problem that we run into with doing something as simple as stopping. And the way to overcome that is to be willing to do the work, and then open ourselves up to new possibilities each time we do it, without trying to figure out 7 times? Do I need to do it 6 times?
Why am I doing the work?
What's going on? I got to do this. I've done this 5 times, Jason. I don't feel any different. I'm really still struggling.
And you really never did it one time,
right?
Because you got into the position from the old story,
right? You're the same guy as the guy that walks into AA and goes, "I've been here 10 meetings. I'm still craving drugs, and this isn't working." Right. And you never were there. You were attending. You weren't participating.
Right.
And so the meditation is the same exact thing. It's the same, behavioral pattern or practice, is you have to sit down and participate. Yeah. Just sitting down and attending meditation is not the same as participating in it. And so that in and of itself is an experience. It's just an experience.
You cannot control it.
Yeah, it's not. It's an experience.
You have to be okay with that.
It's not a test. It's not a football game you're trying to win. Mm-hmm. It's not. There's no high score and low score. All that's, and again, that's all the old thinking that kicks in when you're starting to do some of this stuff, is that it's just sit and breathe, and the simplicity of that. And once you experience, you have those moments where you're like, okay, that's what that was. How the hell that just happened?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I didn't try to make it happen.
Right.
But the repetition of that creates new space.
And I think you have to be gentle almost with yourself as you're going through the process in the beginning, because how many years have we had this pre-programming going on? Basically since birth. So depending on your age, that many years. And just realizing to just be, and to just be okay with what it is. And that, again, like you said, not winning or losing, but it just is. Mm-hmm. I heard a really good example this morning. And it's like, if a baby is learning to walk and starts to, come in the room but then falls down, you don't run up to it and say, "Hey, dummy, that's not how you do that." Mm-hmm. Gosh, you should have learned that by now. You realize that it's something new, and you go and you encourage them. That's the same thing you should do with yourself, is just to cut yourself a break and, really just jump in, not knowing. That unknown part is what's so difficult for me at times. And I think if you just, try it, or not even try it, but just do it, but participate and allow yourself the time to be with yourself, that you could not even believe the results, just like you said with the meeting, thinking that was the best meeting you would ever have, and how would that ever top it? In the very next day, it tops it.
Yeah, explain that to me, how I've been doing this for over 12 years now. And I've been in a whole bunch of meetings. And a lot of good meetings.
Right.
And how can I be, like this week, experiencing the best meetings of my life? Like, how is that even possible? I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
Well, because I position myself to experience the best meetings of my entire life.
Right. Or the best moment of your
I don't go into it judging it, telling it what it's going to be before it is. I'm just showing up and participating in the moment, and and I'm aware, which gives me the gratitude, and I'm just like, wow, this is just absolutely amazing. I'm in awe of what it is as well as what it could be. Now it gives me that desire to continue to position myself to experience greater things versus hoping, wishing, begging, and praying for greater things.
Right.
Which is that problem-solving mindset that just doesn't exist. Here's the deal, is that in that place where, how could I top this meeting? How could I top this speech? How could I help this person? How could I do this? That place that we have labeled, the old story has labeled as negative, as bad, is a place that we like to call vulnerability. And that place is it. That's where it begins. And so people that desire something greater in their life have got to get into a position of vulnerability where you are not in control and you do not know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
You show up. Like, you don't try to make the best meeting of your life take place.
Right.
You show up and you're there. You're present and you experience it. Because in the thought of even saying you need to try is the assumption you're walking into the room that something's already missing.
Right.
And there's nothing missing. And the issue with us trying to improve what's already there and perfected is that we don't allow ourselves to experience it at the level that it's already at, which is everything.
Yeah.
And so, same thing with meditation, going back to that, is us, when you sit down to meditate and you're trying to do this or you're thinking about that, the mental game, mental masturbation that's going on right there is that, hey, I need to do something, I need to add something to this moment or to this experience to make it right, work, effective, whatever it is. And the reality is there's nothing to add at all.
Right.
It's already there. Just experience it.
Yeah.
And so
you've been given everything that you need.
Yeah.
You cannot add to everything that you need.
Yeah.
And so just being aware of that in the moment brings on that state of gratitude, and then you just continue to experience everything that you need.
Everything you need.
So
it's right there.
So I say in closing, talking to the camera here, I think how you take what we said and actually participate instead of, I just listen to that podcast every week, or when I see it on Robin, Jason, or Eric's feed, that you actually take what we said and start to apply it to your own life and participate on whatever little scale that may be in the beginning, and just know that it's a step in the right direction. And that's what I got to say. Ask us if you have questions about it or how to get started, but just participate. Don't try to change your life or try to do this. Just be.
Yeah, and communicate. If you're struggling, if you don't think you're doing it the right way, if you're this, if you're that, if you communicate with us, we are going to communicate with you.
Yeah.
And that is another universal principle for everyone in every aspect of life. If you communicate your information, not someone else's information, because you went to this great seminar and they gave you the rah-rah and now you want to be, you're going to, and you're sharing all this information that they shared with you, that is not going to position you for it. You've got to share your intimate information with the people around you, and the universal principle is that they will share their information with you in return. And that's the blessing, that's the juice, that's the energy of all of it. And so we will communicate with you if you communicate with us.
There you go. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Crazy.